It's time for an upgrade. In this video, I'm going to be completely rebuilding and transforming the motorcycle camper into a car camper. That's right, we're completely changing vehicle types. And you can bet it's going to take a whole lot of work to go from this to this. But I'll be showing you every step in how I rebuilt the camper into an awesome electric car. Then we'll load it up with gear and drive it off-road for an overnight adventure full of delicious foods, exciting drives, fun technology, and so much more. And it all starts with the motorcycle camper. And don't get me wrong, I still think this thing is awesome, especially the cabin part of this build. It has so many cool features packed inside of it, like its own light system for lighting it up at night. It's got its own electrical system for running all sorts of appliances. It's got a built-in solar system on the roof for help charging the battery. And the thing's just super comfy on the inside. But when it comes to the motorcycle part, other than it being super fun to drive around, there's a few things wrong with it. Like for one, it ended up being super heavy, especially for the one front tire. Heavy enough so that it made the front tire actually fall off on the first time I took it out, which was a whole thing itself. And the weight of it leads me to the biggest mistake I made when building this, and that was using this 1-inch square tubing. I thought this stuff would have been strong enough for the build, but after taking it out and driving it the first time, it ended up bending the back frame quite a bit. And if we check out the front of the build, we can see I just kept having to add on so many pieces of the tubing just on top of each other, just to get this thing strong enough where I was comfortable to drive it around. So if I'm going to take the time to turn this motorcycle into a car, the first thing I'm going to do is completely upgrade the frame with this way larger and stronger steel punch tubing. But first things first, I gotta make sure this project's up to standards and coat all of the tubing with this nice heavy duty yellow paint. Nice and cheesy. With the tubing painted, it's time to let it all dry so we can send our attention back over to the camper. Because it's time to undo the weeks of work I did by building the motorcycle frame. And since the whole frame is just held together with a whole bunch of nuts and bolts, it made it a pretty easy job to just go around with a few tools and completely disassemble everything. I also found the whole process super satisfying for some reason, almost therapeutic, as I could just completely remove all of the components of the motorcycle camper until the only thing left of the frame was just a pile of metal. Kinda crazy that this was a whole vehicle a couple hours ago. So, with all of the motorcycle parts removed, we're left with a beautiful blank canvas of a wonderful cabin. And this thing is really cool, just hanging out on some jack stands, ready to be turned into something beautiful. So let's start by rebuilding the frame. And I'm planning on attaching the tubing directly through the main mounts underneath the cabin by replacing the bottom bolts with some longer ones so I can easily bolt it together. So all I gotta do, unbolt all the smaller bolts, tap in some longer ones, place the metal tubing underneath it, then use some washers and lock nuts to hold it in place. And I'm not gonna tighten everything down just yet. Then it's off to the other side where I attach that part of the frame as well. For all of the support beams running across the frame, which there are a few of them, it's time to install those, and for the front and the back ones, I can easily just install them with a couple bolts on each of the ends. But for installing all of the middle support beams, I end up making some brackets out of the tubing and install them on each side along the middle. And all these are going to do, they're just going to help when I install the middle beams to make sure everything stays nice and lined up, keep the frame nice and square, and prevent any weird shifting when I'm driving around. Now I can tighten down all the bolts to the frame and then tighten down the frame to the underside of the cabin. And I'm already feeling so much better about the strength of this frame compared to the previous one. Looking good. Since I'm going to be building a cab on the front of this, it does mean I'm going to have to extend the frame a little bit out of the front. So let's figure that out, using some more pieces of the tubing and some additional pieces for extra length, including using some of this smaller tubing from the previous build that I can slip inside of the center just to add a little bit of extra strength. Then I can take some super large bolts, thread them through all of the tubes, and tighten them down. And you probably noticed that I'm using some washers as spacers between these tubings, and that's because these are actually going to become an important part in the build later, as these parts are going to help me attach on the back axle. But for now, with our longer frame pieces complete, it's time to bring them over to the front and gently slide them in all the way to the back of the frame. Then I can line them up with where I want and install it with a bunch of bolts running through all of the support beams up to the front of the vehicle. Now that we have a sturdy part of the frame running all the way from the back to the new front, I think it's about time we started adding on some components, starting with rebuilding the front axle and attaching it to the frame. With the way these axles are configured right now, there's no way it's going to work in the car configuration. So, sadly, gotta undo all the work we did building the bottom axles to get these things down to just their bare minimum. This one's going to be the rear axle, mostly because it just has the brake calipers still attached to it, which I am going to be reusing later. But when it comes to the front axle, there's still some work to be done, because as it sits right now, it's not going to be able to steer this thing. And to help with that, I got this. And this is a set of these CV joints, these really cool axles that are specifically made for the motors I got. There's also these arms that will help mount it to the frame, and I'm even able to add some suspension to it, using some of the shocks from the last build. Now that we got our components for the front axle, we're going to need a way to attach it all to the frame. And for that, it came with these metal mounting plates, but they're a little bit thin, and honestly, they're not even properly cut out. So I actually decided I'm going to be making my own mounting plates with some larger pieces of steel. Using the one piece of metal that was properly cut out, I place it over the center of the steel I'm going to use and trace out all the holes. For attaching the plates to the frame, I make a little mock section of what the frame's going to look like and trace out where the holes line up. Then I can clamp the pieces of metal together and bring it on over to the drill press because there's some holes needed to be drilled out. For the center hole, it's going to be the largest hole I've ever had to cut out in metal, so I'm going to be using this special annular drill bit, and I really hope it cuts out easy. So, after scavenging all the vice clamps I could find, adding a little bit of drill oil, it was time to drill through both of the plates, and surprisingly, the cutter did a pretty nice job, just a little bit messy spraying oil everywhere. For the rest of the holes, it was pretty straightforward as I just used some standard drill bits. The only thing you gotta watch out for is the crazy spinning metal noodles. They look pretty sweet, but I don't think they'd be any good with pasta sauce. After drilling a couple more holes later, and we had ourselves our metal mounting plates complete. This is definitely the most amount of holes I had to drill in a piece of metal, and it turned out pretty clean using the drill press. But it could always look a little bit cleaner, so let's hit it with some of that yellow paint. And after the plates dried, I am super happy with how these things turned out, looking clean. Now, in order to attach them up to the motors, it does mean I have to completely disassemble the front axle, so I'm just left with the bare motors themselves. Then, I install a new gasket, the end of the CV joint, the metal plate on top, as well as using some thread locker and a couple longer bolts to bolt it all together for both of the motors. So, let's go ahead and get these both attached to the frame, which is a super easy job as I can just take it, line it up with the frame, and hold it in place with some bolts. And you can really see how these metal plates make it super easy to connect these motors up to the tubing. Then it's off to build out the rest of the front axle using some more of the square tubing, then going around and tightening all the bolts together. Next up, let's connect up these suspension arms, which is going to be super easy as I'm just going to use the existing holes in the tubing and some large threaded rods to easily connect it all together through the frame. Now I can slide in the front axle and attach the steering knuckle to the ball joints and tighten it all down. Before attaching the suspension, I add on a couple spacers on this top section right here. Then I can take the bottom of the shock and install it in the arm. For the top of the shock mount, it's going to be installed in this section right here with a long piece of threaded rod, as well as some of these rubber spacers just to ensure everything's nice and cushioned. And with that, we got our front right suspension completely built out. This thing is awesome and it's really looking nice, and I'm getting very excited about this. So let's head over to the other side and build out that side just the same. This thing is really starting to come together. Before I go ahead and install the steering system, I think it's important to add a couple more pieces of tubing to the frame in this front section to add some more strength running along the length of it, which I can then just easily bolt together to the rest of the frame. Much more secure. And speaking of secure, do you want to know what else is secure? The sponsor of today's video, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN or virtual private network that can help protect your internet data, because whenever you're online and browsing the web, your computer's constantly spitting out data, which you can think of like flowing down a stream. And with Surfshark, it can help you better navigate and protect it, because instead of letting it just float down on the open waters, Surfshark encrypts the data and carries it along a safe path. And don't worry, Surfshark doesn't keep any logs, so not even they will know if you've been working really hard or watching hours of your favorite YouTuber. It's also great for traveling since it encrypts your internet data, so you can feel a whole lot safer when connecting up to some public Wi-Fi networks. They also offer another service called Surfshark Alert, which keeps an eye on your personal data, whether it be email, credit card, or even your ID, and it will sound an alarm if anything looks fishy. I've personally been using VPNs for years, and I just like the extra layer of protection it adds on with the encryption, just to be a little bit safer. There's going to be a link in the description below for Surfshark, and using the code QuietNerd at checkout will give you an extra 4 months of the VPN. They also offer a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee, so go check it out. I just want to say thank you Surfshark for help sponsoring this video. And with that, I know my data is nice and secure, and I also know the front of this frame is secure as well. So let's get back at it and add on our steering system. Starting with getting this rack and pinion installed on the front. And I'm planning on installing it right around here, but sadly, the holes don't line up on the frame, so to help install it in place, I'm going to be using another piece of steel plate. And I can just line up the rack and pinion, mark where it goes, trim off all the extra metal, and drill out all the holes on the drill press. And we got ourselves a nice little happy plate that's just begging to be painted yellow. After giving it a nice coat of paint, it's time to get it installed, which is super easy as I can just take some bolts and attach it to the plate, then I can bring it over to the frame and attach it there as well. Next up, let's hook it up to the steering knuckle. And the kit I got, it did come with these links, and you can see how it actually make this thing steer, but the links that it came with, they're a little bit small, so I am going to have to extend them quite a bit. And the solution I came up for that is a pretty simple one. I'm just going to go ahead and cut each of the links in half. Then I can take some steel rod, place it in the center to extend them, grab my welder, and weld all the links together. With the links all welded up, I do want to add a small curve to them, and I end up using the solution of just beating it with the hammer till it was around the shape that I was hoping for. Then it's off to the paint station to get these things looking wonderful. And with that, we can go ahead and install these on the build, which is super easy as they just thread into all the components. Then I can attach them to the steering knuckles, place on the castle nut, and put in the cotter pin to make sure this stuff won't ever undo itself. After hooking up the other side, the only thing left to attach is going to be the steering wheel. And for that, I'm actually going to be using some leftover pieces of the steel tubing from the previous camper build, and build a nice strong structure for the steering wheel to be mounted. For attaching the steering wheel to the frame, it's going to need some place for it to sit and be able to rotate. And for that, I ended up finding this. This is called a pillow block bearing. I'm really not sure why it's called that. It's definitely not soft like a pillow. Maybe it's just like a cushioned pillow ride for whatever you place inside. And the bearing I got is the perfect size and fit for the steering wheel mount. And since the bearing has built-in mounting holes, it makes it really easy as I can just bolt it down directly to the steering wheel structure. Now I can take the link and connect it up to the rack and pinion, and bring it up and connect it to the steering wheel mount. Then it's as simple as taking the steering wheel and bolting it down. And just like that, our steering system is complete. And you can see, when I turn the wheel, it's going to turn the knuckles on each side. I am getting so excited about this. We're getting one step closer to getting this thing finished, and the steering system is a big step out of the way. So cool. Before building out the new back axle, I want to add a couple more pieces of tubing on the front, like one for this bumper section. I want to add another section along the middle, just to finish building out the front frame and add a little bit more strength running along it. With the front of the frame complete, it's time to head to the back because we still got to attach the back axle, which I'm going to build out with some more of the square tubing to ensure that it's nice and strong and have a solid place where I can mount my control arms. And these are going to be the pieces of tubing that I use to connect it up to the bottom of the vehicle. You might remember how I mentioned when I built these long pieces of frame, how these side pieces of metal are to become important, and that's because these are where I'm going to be connecting up my control arms by adding on some drop down sections and bolting it down to the frame. Then I can grab the axle, slide it underneath, line up the control arms with the drop down sections, and install them with some large bolts directly through the holes in the frame, along with some rubber spacers just to make sure it's cushioned, and then tighten it down to the frame. Now that we got the control arms attached, it's time to add the back suspension. I was originally planning on reusing these red shocks from the previous build, but after inspecting them, I noticed there was a slight hairline fracture along this top eyelet, and it definitely had me worried that this thing was going to pop off when I was driving around. So I decided against using those red ones and instead used these shorter, stronger ones. These are also from the previous build, and there's no way these ones should break. But since I did a last minute change of shocks, it does mean I'm going to have to do a last minute change of the suspension on the back axle as well. But lucky enough, working with the square punch tubing, it makes it easy enough if you have to make some last minute changes, as you can just play around with different configurations, almost like a set of Lego. And after a little while of playing with some tubing, I got the shock installed. So it's off to the other side where I install that shock as well. And with that, our frame and suspension system is complete. Absolutely wonderful. Next up, it's time to head to the front of the vehicle because you can probably notice something's missing here. And of course, it's the cab that we're going to be sitting inside when driving this thing. So let's get to building that. For building out the cab, I'm going to be using a whole bunch of wood. For all of the wood on this project, I already went ahead and covered it with some nice heavy duty wood sealer. This stuff's great. It's the same stuff I used on the previous cabin part of the build, and when it dries, it just becomes a really nice color with some great waterproof protection. So let's build the cab, starting with the boards that are going to connect the cab to the base of the frame. And for attaching these boards to the metal tubing, it's pretty simple. I just take a marker and mark where the holes line up on the underside. Then I can just drill out the holes, as well as drill out some spaces for the bolt heads. Now before I install the boards, I am going to be placing it on top of a couple metal spacers made from some scrap pieces from the previous build, just to raise up the boards a little bit more. Then I can drop in all the boards with some bolts to hold them in place. For the front board, the steering mechanism is in the way a bit, so I end up having to trace out a section and cutting it out with a jigsaw so that when I go back to install it, it actually has room to still turn. Then all I gotta do is tighten down all the bolts between the wood and the steel frame underneath. And now we have a super strong base which we can screw our floorboards into. So let's go ahead and get those installed. And these are some 1-inch boards that I can lay on top, take some screws, just a few screws, and screw them down directly into the boards underneath for super strong secure connection. For the section by the steering wheel, I cut out some boards that fit around the tubing and screw those boards down as well for a super clean looking floor. Now that the cab's got a proper base, the next thing to install is going to be the opening because I think it'd be really sweet if I had access directly to the cab from inside of the cabin. So it's on to the fun step of cutting out this sidewall right here. Before I start cutting a hole in this camper, I do have to remove all of these screws right here because they're holding in place some 2x4 support beams on the other side, which are important, but they are in the way right now, so I'm going to have to remove them and I'll reposition them again later. Then I can start the super satisfying process of taking a jigsaw and zipping around cutting open the new opening on the camper, which was so satisfying and so much fun to see this door just come to life. With the new opening to the cab cut out, it's time to reinstall those 2x4 support beams on the inside by lining them up on the edges, clamping them in place, and taking some more of those screws and screwing them back down to the frame, ensuring the camper stays nice and strong and doesn't lose any strength when building up the cab. And just like that, we got our new opening. But there is a couple more things I have to remove, because if we look along the roof right here, this stuff's going to be in the way from the new cab build. And these are just some hooks that are holding down the solar panels, which are super easy to remove, and I will end up reusing them later. And I also have to remove this piece of wood as well, which honestly wasn't easy, because whoever put it on there so well that the cedar wood did not want to be removed. I mean, the cedar wood ended up breaking. I ended up using a hammer and a screwdriver to try to pry it apart, breaking again. It literally took me like a half hour to get just one piece of wood off of this thing. But at the same time, it made me happy knowing that my camper is well put together and it's not going to just fall apart. Now that we got the wood removed, it's finally time to start building out the cab walls. And to help hold the pieces together, I'm going to be using some of these metal brackets. And I got a few different types to use. So let's go ahead and get these installed, which is super easy as they just slot into the 2x4s and can be held in place with some small screws. And I really like building with these metal brackets as they make assembling these structures super quick and easy and nice and strong. With the bottom of the frame built, it's time to add on the side panel, which is going to be another piece of some 1-inch board which I can lay on top, clamp down, and screw down directly to the wood underneath. For building out the rest of the frame, I use another corner bracket for the top section. Then for the front board, I use some of these metal joiner plates to attach the pieces together. To finish building out the rest of this cab wall, I take some 1-inch board that I cut perfectly to fit over the 2x4 frame and screw it down on top, just to make it look a little bit nicer and to make sure it has a flat surface on the outside. And just like that, the wall's complete. But since this is for a cab, we're going to need another wall, so I went ahead and made a mirrored copy for the other side. And honestly, I think these turned out looking beautiful. So let's go ahead and get them installed, which is super easy as I can just pick them up, place them on each of the sides. And since I use these metal brackets, it makes it super easy as I can just drop in a couple of pieces of 2x4, grab some screws, and screw it all together for super quick construction of the frame. I also add on another piece of wood in this front section right here, just to give it a little bit more strength. And we can see the cab's really starting to come together, but we can also see it's not actually attached to anything. But before we go ahead and attach it to the rest of the frame, I want to make sure it's going to be nice and weather sealed. And for that, I ended up getting this, some rubber window seal. It's a super flexible rubber tubing that has some nice adhesive on the back of it, so it's going to be easy to mount this. And I begin by taking the weather stripping and place it along the backside of the cab I just built. Then I stick down another layer on the outside of the cabin that perfectly lines up with the layer I put on the cab. Then I could just push the cab to the back wall and it squishes down the rubber seal together for nice weatherproof seal. Now to connect up the cab to the cabin, I'm going to be using these heavy duty metal L brackets. And I'm also going to be using some of this clear double-sided tape called alien tape. I love this stuff and I always find an excuse to use it. And for this, I'm just going to be placing a couple pieces on the back of the brackets so I can stick it down between the cabin and the frame. Then I can drill out the holes going through both of the 2x4s, place in some bolts, and tighten it down for a secure connection. And since I'm using the alien tape between the brackets, it gives some extra cushion or squish so that when I bolt it together, it can actually squish the pieces together further. Then it's off to the other side where I install 2 more of those brackets just the same to ensure that the cab is firmly connected to the cabin. But if you're keeping track, you may notice that the cab, it's not actually attached to the floor yet. So let's go ahead and connect that up using some more of those brackets so I can drill and bolt it together through the frame and the 2x6 underneath the floor. Then all I gotta do is go around and install a couple more of these brackets on the front of the frame to make sure it's nice and connected together in one solid piece. With it all connected up, we're ready to install the front plate, which is just a 1-inch board that I can just hold in place and screw down directly to the frame underneath. And just like that, the front frame build is complete, and I am so happy with how this cab turned out. It looks awesome, it's heavy duty, it's got these massive windows, and it just makes me smile being in there. And speaking of windows, I am going to be installing them later in the build, but for this next step, it's going to be easier if I have this space open because it's time to start working on the electronics and re-hooking up these motors. And for wiring it all up, I could just simply reconnect them to the controllers just as they were left from the motorcycle camper, but honestly, looking at this pile of wires, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between this and a plate of spaghetti. And I have built 2 other projects since the motorcycle camper, each with their own electronic system, and every project I build, I feel like I get better at my electronic system and wire management. So I know I can do a better job on this build, and I'm going to be taking inspiration from my Rover camper build and building a similar controller box to that project, starting with the container that's going to hold the controllers. I'm also going to be using some of these bus bars and terminal blocks to help distribute the power and the controller signals. To be able to get wires inside of the case, I'm going to be installing some of these cable glands so I'll be able to run everything and connect it up to the controllers. So let's get it all installed. And to help with that, I'm going to be using some cutting board. And if you've been following along with any of my recent projects, you may have noticed I've been using this material a lot lately. I just found it to be like the perfect material to mount electronics, as it's really easy to cut and modify it, it's non-conductive, and it's just really fun to work with. With the base plate cut out, I can drop and place all the controllers and components, grab a marker, and mark where all the mounting holes line up on the yellow cutting board underneath. I do have to make room for a couple more connections, so for that, I decided to grab another smaller piece of cutting board and lay it on top so I can actually fit everything inside the case. Now that we got all the places marked out on the cutting boards, it's time to head over to the drill press where I can begin to drill out all the holes we just marked. And I'm using a special drill bit for this that has a flat countersunk bit, which leave perfect holes for installing these socket head machine screws, which screw in flush on one side and have a nice strong post to mount things on the other. Then all I gotta do is go around and install some more of those machine screws and install an extra long one along the middle, which should be used for attaching the top layer. Now, before I install the cutting board in the container, I am going to take some more of that alien tape and place down some layers of it on the bottom of the container so I can stick down the cutting board on top. Then, using some more of the tape, I stick down some 2x4s on the bottom. The tape's going to act as a way to hold it in place and also act as a bit of a gasket so that when I take some large screws, screw it down through the cutting board, the container, into the wood underneath, it's still going to be nice and sealed because the screws are going through that special tape. Next up, let's get these cable glands installed by using a hole saw to drill out the holes, dropping in the cable glands and tightening them down through the case. Now I can take all the components and install them on the cutting board base and tighten them down directly to the machine screws. Then I connect up all of the power to the bus bar so I can later hook it up to the battery. I can now install the top board with all the other terminal block connections. And everything's all hooked up super secure. To make things a little bit easier on myself, I use my label maker to label what each of the controllers is going to control. Then I can begin to hook up all of the wires to the terminal blocks. And when it comes to the throttle and reverse, I'm actually going to be connecting all of the controllers together so that they can run off of one signal. Then for hooking it up to our actual controls, I'll be using this 5-conductor wire so that I can feed it out through this cable gland, run it up to the front of the vehicle later, and hook it up to our actual throttle and reverse switch. But for now, it's time to connect these up to our motors, which is super simple as I can just take the wires running from the motors, feed them in through the cable glands, connect up the Hall sensors which just snap together, then I can just take the phase wires and match them up with the color coding on the terminal blocks. Then, after a little bit of cable management, I'm really happy with how the wiring looks like inside here. And I designed this system so that if any of the components breaks, I can just unscrew a few things, drop in a new component, and I don't have to worry about having to cut wires. And with that, the only thing left to hook up in here is going to be the power coming from the battery. But for now, it's time to install this underneath the vehicle. And for that, I'm just going to pre-drill in a couple screws on each side, then slide underneath the vehicle along with myself and sort of awkwardly hold it up with one knee and screw it down directly into the main frame underneath for a super strong connection of our controller box, nice and secure, and we can access it whenever we need. And I'm super happy with how the wiring of the controllers turned out, so much nicer than it was before. But we still gotta hook them up to the battery. And for that, let's go check out what the battery box is looking like. And honestly, looking inside of it, the wire management is a little bit messy. And since I'm spending all this time redoing all of the other wiring, I thought I might as well give this a little bit of a cleaner touch as well. So time for a quick little wire management upgrade. And for that, I'm just going to be moving things around a little bit. And I also add in these holes just so I can cable manage underneath the board as well. I also decided to move the 12-volt converter to its own circuit board, cutting board. And with that, let's go ahead and connect it back up by running all the wires through those holes I installed, attaching the 12-volt supply to the wall, connecting up all the wires, and screwing down the cutting board back to the frame of the vehicle to make sure the board's not going to be bouncing around. And I kept all the functionality back here, got the fuses, the inverter, the bus bars, and the 12-volt supply. And while I'm back here, I thought it'd be cool if I added a couple little upgrades, like for one of them, this, a 12-volt to USB-C port. And I think this would be really cool if I installed it right here in the back wall. And it's really easy to install, just drill out a hole, pop it in place, put on the nut on the other side, and connect it up to the 12-volt supply. And I chose this one specifically because it has a switch so you can turn it on and off. Super useful for charging stuff. There's also a couple other things I want to install back here, and that is some of these quick connects. I really like using these on my last couple projects. They're heavy duty connections that can handle a whole lot of current, And I think it'd be cool if I had access to these ports on the outside of the camper. So I just go ahead and drill a couple holes through the wall, drop in each of the connectors. Then I can take some silicone and spread it around each of the ports so that when I install them with some screws, it'll squish the silicone behind it, creating a nice waterproof seal and make sure everything's sealed up. Then on the inside, I connect the larger port up to 48 volts, which I can use for charging, and the smaller port gets connected up to the 12-volt converter so I can run other things on 12 volts. And with that, the battery box compartment modifications are complete. Beautiful. Next up, let's start working on these controls. And for that, I'm actually going to be using some of these heavy-duty cutoff switches. I want to have one of these switches for the back axle and another switch for the front axle. And I'm going to be installing them right around here in the front cab. But in order to run power to them, I do have to drill a hole through the floor. And to make it look cleaner, I install a cable gland by threading it directly into the wood underneath. Then I can take the signal wire with the throttle in reverse and the power wires running from our battery to our controller, feed them up through the cable gland, and connect up the power wires directly to the switches. Then to install the switches, it's super simple. I place them where I want, take some screws, and screw that down directly to the frame of the cab. And one of the switches is for the back axle and the other is going to be for the front. For controlling the speed, I found this nice little pedal throttle and I went ahead and attached it to a piece of wood. Then for the forward and reverse, I found this really cool little drum switch. I just like the form factor of it and I think it's going to be perfect. So let's connect up these controls by connecting them all up to that wire running back to the controller box using some of these self-soldering heat shrink tubings. Now I can take the forward and reverse switch and mount it down directly to the frame with a couple screws and then connect it on up with the reverse wires. For the throttle switch, I attach on this metal L bracket so that I can slip it in place in the front and screw it down to the frame as well. And now we have our throttle for the speed and our switch for the forward and reverse. And you may be thinking to yourself, what's the point of having a reverse switch if you can't even see what's going on behind you? So to fix that, I ended up getting this, a reverse camera kit. It's got a small camera, it's got a tiny little monitor, and I also got an external switch that I'll use to turn it on and off. For installing this kit, I do have to put another hole in the floor on the opposite side in the cab. Then I can just run the wires and connect it up to the 12-volt supply. For installing the camera, I head to the back of the vehicle and just use some small bolts and bolt it down directly to the steel tubing frame for super easy installation. And with the camera installed, we can flip on the switch and we get a good view if there's anything strange behind us. For installing the monitor, it does come with a suction cup, but that's not going to work because it's going to be sticking to some wood. So I end up going with the solution of just drilling through it and placing in some screws directly to the frame. For the external switch I got one with some adhesive already on the back of it, so I could just stick it down to this metal plate and have an easy place to turn it on and off. Some pretty fancy stuff, to be honest. Looking good. Now that we can see behind us, to help us see even better, it's time to reinstall the light system from the previous build. And using the square tubing makes installing the lights super easy, as I can just bolt them directly down to the frame on the front, as well as adding on the other two lights on the back. For controlling the light system, I run the switch wire up to the front of the cab through the cable gland, because I'm going to be connecting up the wire to this nice switch and enclosure. And I like using a switch like this because it's easy to hook up, and once you close up the top, you can mount it super easy on the side of the frame with just a couple screws. And now when we flip the switch, we can see it turns on the lights in the front, and we even got the lights in the back. Beautiful. And speaking of lights, since I did add on like a whole nother room by building the cab, I want to install another one of these RV lights. And I think it will be perfect right around here. But in order to do that, I'm going to need to install another piece of wood on the roof just so it has enough space. Then I can take the light, place it where I want it, and screw it down into the new roof support. For running power to the light, I'm just going to tap into the wire feeding all the other lights just to keep things simple. And just like that, we got our new light installed. Wonderful. Next up, you probably noticed that there's a bunch of hanging wires everywhere, especially underneath the vehicle, which would be a complete nightmare if I drove it around like this. So it's time to do a little bit of cable management using some of this yellow split tubing and a whole bunch of zip ties. Actually, before I go ahead and cable manage it all up, I think it's important I test the system to make sure it works. I flip the switch, send it forward, and when I hit the throttle, we can see the back axle spinning forward. Then I can send it in reverse, and when I hit the throttle, it's spinning in reverse now. Then I can flip the other switch, which is going to turn on the front axle and give me the ability to have 4-wheel drive and send power to both the front and the back axle at the same time. And I can't help but smile when I see these axles spin. All the motors are working beautifully, and I'm so happy when the electronics just work right away. So let's get back and clean up all these wires. I begin by taking some electrical tape to wrapping it around some bunches just to make it a little bit easier so that when I head under with the split tubing, the wires will have an easier time of fitting inside. Then I can take some zip ties and go around to the split tubing and connect it directly down to the holes on the steel tubing frame for super easy connection, clean wire management, and it looks pretty sweet as well. Then it's time to step inside and cable manage all the wires for the lights, as well as adding on some split tubing for the control wires in the front to give them some extra protection and get this front cab looking awesome. Then the final touch for the controls is to add on some labels so I know exactly what each of them does, in case I forget. And with that, all of the electronics are complete. But we're still missing a couple more things, like for one, a nice seat for the cab. And the seat I chose, it's actually a seat that folds down super flat, which will fit in perfect. For installing the seat, I clamped down some 2x4s to the metal frame and drill through both of them. Then using some bolts, I tighten down the wood to the bottom of the seat. Then I can bring the whole thing over to the cab, position it where I want it, take some long screws, and screw it down directly into the cab frame underneath. And it's on there nice and strong. And I chose a seat that folds flat like this just so it makes it really easy when entering the cab. Now that we have a seat and a way to make this thing go, I think it's about time we give this a way to stop. So it's time to head to the back axle where I still have those brake calipers installed. And if we check out the end of the brake line, we still have the bicycle brake handlebar installed, which really isn't going to work for this setup. So it's time to change it up. And for that, I found this. And this is a really cool brake handle I found. I've actually been holding on to it for a couple months. I knew I wanted to use it for a project. I just wasn't sure which one until I started building this one. So let's go ahead and get it installed. Starting with removing the bicycle brake, so I can take the brake line and feed it up to the front. But in order to get the brake line in the cab, it does mean I have to drill another hole in the floor. Then I can feed the brake line through, place on another cable gland, and connect it up to the brake handle. For installing it permanently, I place it on top of a block of wood, take some long screws, and screw it down directly into the 2x6 underneath the floor. Nice and secure. Then it's time to fill it up with some brake fluid, bleed the brakes, cable manage the brake line all the way up to the front of the vehicle, and we got ourselves a nice solid brake system. And I really like the design of this handle. I think it's really perfect for this, especially in this small space. And I just realized the brake came with this little red hook, and I think it's a parking brake, which is a pretty cool feature to have. And with that, all of the controls in the cab are complete. But we still got one more major part to add on, some nice big windows. So let's go ahead and get these installed. And for the windows, I'm going to be taking inspiration from my first mobile cabin build. I was really happy with how the windows came out on that build, and I want to do a similar process on this one, starting with the material to make the windows. And for that, it's actually just some clear vinyl. It's sold as table protector vinyl. I just think it's great. It doesn't scratch easy, it's nice and strong, and I don't have to worry about it shattering. So let's get them installed. And it's always a bit tough to start working with this material as it's been coiled up for probably weeks, so you really have to kind of maneuver it to get it down flat. But once I get it in a good place, I take some stainless steel staples and a staple gun and go around and place in some staples just to hold it down. For installing the side window, it's pretty much the same process as I hold the vinyl in place and staple it down to the frame, but there is a little bit of extra vinyl that I do have to trim off to make it look even. Then it's off to the other side where I install that piece of vinyl just the same and trim off the extra as well. Then of course, adding on one more piece of vinyl on the roof because I think it's going to be sweet if this thing had a roof window. Now for really installing these and making them permanent, I'm going to be using some more of that alien tape and placing a strip of it along all of the staples I just installed. Then on top of it, I'm going to stick down a piece of cedar wood stripping. Then to stick that down, I take a drill to drill out some evenly spaced points all along the cedar wood stripping. Then I can take some screws and screw together all the layers of the wood, the tape, the vinyl into the frame underneath for a nice strong seal. Now it's just a matter of going around to all the edges on the vinyl windows, attaching the wood, and screwing them all down to the frame underneath. And I really like this method of attaching on the windows, as I feel it's super secure. I don't have to worry about the windows coming loose, shaking around, or any chance of falling off. And I think it makes the windows look super clean as well. I also go around with a couple small pieces of the wood stripping and add them onto areas I feel like need to be filled out just a little bit more. Now if you remember those hooks that I removed earlier, I can finally take them, head back up to the roof, and reinstall them with some screws directly down to the new frame so I can hook them back up to the solar panels. Just to make sure the solar panels are nice and held down on the roof and I don't have to worry about them falling off when driving around. And the final touch for the windows is going around with some of this clear silicone and filling up all the little cracks I can find, making sure that this front cab is going to be nice and sealed and waterproof and keep out any rain and snow. And with that, our windows are complete and I am so happy with how they turned out. They're massive, they're clear, and they're going to be perfect for driving this thing around. All that's left to do now is the finishing touch. And that of course is the new license plate. Since this is a pretty massive upgrade, I think it deserves a new plate as well. And since I built 2 other projects since then, it's going to get the correct new number, QN07. And just like that, the project's complete. And I am so excited because the only thing left to do now is to take this thing out for a wonderful night. Actually, there is still one more thing left to do. Now we can have some fun. Oh yeah. It's handling way better than I expected. I am thrilled with this. So far I've only been driving with one of the axles on. I'm going to go ahead and flip on the front one as well. Oh yeah, it's definitely got a lot more pep now. Oh boy. Bumpy. Somewhere over here, there's actually a fishing spot I want to try to find. All my things in the back are jumping around. Anyway, somewhere around here is a fishing spot. I want to try to find it. And since it's such a beautiful day out, I think we should try to do a little bit of fishing. It's like really nice out. It was below freezing this morning, and now it's like sunny and warm. I love it. All right, let's find this fishing spot. Look at that. It's actually right here. Let's see if we can try our hand at some fishing. And I brought my little tiny fishing pole. So you got this little dock right here. Nice little fishing spot. It's honestly turning out to be such a nice day. It's warm, it's sunny, and I'm so happy with how my machine handled getting out here. It steered beautifully, handled the bumps nice and solid, and it just made me smile the whole time. I'm thrilled. Anyways, got myself a yellow worm, little fishing pole, nice little spot. Let's see if we can catch a fish. The water, I'm sure, is still very cold, so I don't know if the fish are just like way deep hiding out there. I really haven't seen anything yet. Usually I see something come by. Yesterday morning there was snow on the ground, and now I am in a t-shirt. I think this is the first day I've worn a t-shirt all year. Well, I didn't get a nibble or nothing. I think it's a little bit too cold still. Anyways, I think it's time to head on back to the vehicle, keep on driving, and find ourselves a nice little camping spot for tonight. Probably somewhere over there or something. It got cold after that. That water was freezing. I like this seat. I literally think it's the best choice for this because it folds nice and flat so I can easily get inside. Alright, let's go to a spot. Oh, bumpy. That sun is warm, and with these clear windows like this, it's like a greenhouse in here. But the sun like this is good because I do have my solar panels on and the little charger over there. I don't know if you can see it. We'll go check that out later once I park. But yeah, hopefully it's getting some juice back up in the battery with the sun. And I love the reverse on this. The lever's great. And I even got my little reverse camera, if you can even see it. It's pretty bright out. I can see it in person, but the camera doesn't like picking it up. Might as well put on the little parking brake, and we can go ahead and turn this off. One thing I do notice about this is it's a little squeaky. I think it's just the wood squeaking. I think the floor or something from the screws. But yeah, other than that, this thing handles beautifully. And when I'm facing this way, the sun is kind of behind me, so it's not just like cooking and turning this thing into a greenhouse. It's a little bit cooler facing this way. Yeah, I feel like this is a nice little spot to hang out, make some dinner, and just enjoy the night. And I think later on I'll probably do some driving around, do some night driving, because I mean I did install some lights on this thing. For now, I think it's time to organize our little camper, because my stuff is just kind of everywhere, especially if they're bouncing around so much. That was awesome though. Alright, just going around and sort of hanging up everything using all my hooks. And I've had the solar panel on pretty much charging the whole time. The camera has a hard time picking it up, it flickers a lot, but we're charging at around 2 amps right now. Let's see, we got some pretty clear skies. And we got the solar panels up here, got 400 watt panels, doing some nice work on the 48 volt battery. And speaking of the battery, it looks like we are at 91%. So we used around 9% in getting out here, and I drove for quite a while, did some fishing, did some more driving. So really not too bad, to be honest. Less than 10% is pretty good. But I have been also like drawing power from the solar panels as well, so definitely helps with that. And we'll see how much more juice we'll gain from the panels just kind of being on passively. Kind of cleaned up the camp a little bit. I'm utilizing my new front cab to kind of push all my gear there in the meantime. Yeah, I got this box, pretty much all my food, all my little electronic stuff, and that one's all like my camera gear and things like that. Got some pillow, got a sleeping bag, little cooler backpack, and a little backpack. Sweatshirt, pillow, and somewhere up there is a winter coat. I can't believe I brought a winter coat. It's supposed to get cold tonight, but right now it feels good. In fact, it's, if you can see this, it says it's 61. Pretty good, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to go ahead and take the other part of this thermometer and pop it outside, so we'll be able to kind of keep an eye on that all night long. And I did bring, if you can believe it, a little bit of heater, so we'll warm this place up if it does end up getting cold. But for now, whew, feels good. I'll put it right there for now, and this will give us our outdoor reading for the rest of the night. But this feels incredible, just hanging out in here. Alright, I think it's time to do a little walk around, see how the vehicle held up. I'm definitely really proud of the new front axle. I like how you can actually steer this thing, and everything looks good. Yeah, everything looks good up here. Nice, a little bit muddy, but that's to be expected. Other than that, everything else looks beautiful. A little bit muddy, a little bit dirty, but everything's perfect. I love it. Oh wow, there's like a million little flies, little gnats. You can see them all. Oh boy, we're not yet in mosquito season, but soon they'll be out here by the billions. Oh, this thing is awesome. Oh, I'm so happy with how this thing performed. Did such a beautiful job. The skies are just crazy blue right now. It's beautiful. I am a little bit hungry right now. It's a little bit early to make dinner. So instead, I'm going to have a nice little snack, and I got something pretty unique for that. Got this piece of fruit right here called a dragon fruit. I think they're called dragon fruit because almost like it has scales, but I think it looks like a dragon egg or something. And if you've never had one of these, go ahead and try to guess what the color inside is. It's kind of different than you might expect. Look how cool it is. It always reminds me of like a cookies and cream candy bar. Just the colors of this fruit is so unreal. It's almost alien-like. It's got these little tiny black seeds in there, and they are edible. Once you cut it, you just sort of peel off the purple part. And then you're just left with like the fruit, and it's very slimy. It's a unique flavor. It's a very light fruit. It's kind of like a grape and an apple combined to some degree. Got the little crunchies of the seeds. It's very juicy. It's good. It's a good unique fruit. If you never had one, definitely recommend trying it at least once. I love the color of like the rind. So cool. It's got a nice sweetness to it. Oh. That was nice. Nice little treat. If you can check our battery, we've already gone up 2% on the battery, which is like honestly a pretty big deal with a battery this size. But that's awesome. Gone up 2% while eating a dragon fruit. So cool. Now that we got some extra juice being charged up on our battery from our solar panels, we might as well spend it and make a nice little cup of tea. Got my little water boiler here. And I feel like having some lemon tea. It sounds like a nice little refreshing tea. And over here, got a little power. Turn on our inverter, our 800 watt inverter. Plug in the watt meter, 120 volts. Now I can plug this in. And then for my water, I brought this cooler. I really like this. I originally got this for my Rover camper build, so I could like strap it to the side. And I got it mostly because of these clasps around it, which really secure it to the top, so I don't have to worry about water spilling out, even if this thing completely flips over, because I was hitting bumps and everything was jumping around back here. So it just makes me feel better knowing my water's not going to spill everywhere. And the kettle's pulling right around 600 watts, 585, and our solar panels are actually putting back in probably around 250 watts back into the system. So about half of the power right now is coming from the sun to boil our water, which is pretty cool. I like that. It's so relaxing. I like all my windows. Nice glass windows. Got the plastic bubble window, another window, and then we got the cab up there. And honestly, it's funny, when I'm facing this way, I forget that I completely put a cab on here, because I've camped in this thing twice before, and it was all closed off. There's just a wall there, so when I turn over and just see this big open cab, it's like, oh yeah, I built something there. Yeah, this is just nice. Nice day. Let me go ahead and open up this window. 65 outside, 61 inside. I think it's time to poke around outside a little bit, see what's going on out there. Got my flag again, made from the original yellow tarp from the very first camper. I got my two little ports here, the 12-volt port. In my last couple videos, I've been using a diesel heater, which honestly I think is a fantastic heater. Probably in the future I might do an upgrade on this and kind of put the diesel heater somewhere in the back, and I'll be able to run that off of this 12 volts right here. And then this 48 volt port, I don't know, maybe I can have an external inverter or something like that, but I also use this to charge the camper. Kind of charged it directly through there, which is pretty useful. Honestly, you don't have to go inside and hook it up to the terminals, just plug it right on in. Fun fact, this camper, it's actually a little bit shorter than the motorcycle camper build. I think it's maybe like 1.5 feet or 2 feet shorter. That the front fork stuck out quite a bit on the motorcycle part. A little bit more compact, even though it just feels and looks bigger. Always a little bit nerve-wracking the first time I take it out on a big adventure like this, because you never know how it's going to handle, but handles beautifully. Way better than tank steering, way easier to maneuver, and so cool. And the frame held up beautifully. No movement, no bends, nothing like that. Definitely glad I went ahead and redid all of the structural tubing on this. That 1-inch tubing was just too small for something this big. And the solar panels, the bright sun like this, they're doing beautifully, and they're really not warm at all. And I designed it so this kind of array has some space underneath it so it can dissipate the heat, because that's the problem with these thin ones. They can get too hot and damage themselves. So that's just something you got to be aware of if you get these small ones compared to like the actual big glass ones. But they're like so much lighter weight. I think it's almost worth it for a build like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if we end up recharging our battery back up to full by the time the sun sets. Oh wow, lots of deer tracks. I know there's definitely some snakes around here. Do you see it? Right there. Let's see if we can do this. Oh, that was quick. A gardener snake over there. Oh, he's gone. That's where I'm gonna be hanging out. Oh, I love it. These windows are so cool. Well, I think it's time to head back inside. Maybe cook up some dinner. So nice. And our solar system is still charging like a champ. Right around 5 amps. That's so awesome. Yeah, 98% on the battery. We started at 91 when we parked here, and we went up 7%, which is honestly super impressive. It's cool to see the solar panels in action. The last time I took it out was when I first put on the solar system, and it wasn't that bright of a day, and I think you only got a couple percentage back up on the battery. But today, I feel like I've only been hanging out here for a couple hours, and I've already almost got back up to full, which is incredible. It kind of shows you what you can really do with it. There's just so many cool features packed into this camper, and I absolutely love it. It was really nice outside. But for now, I'm starting to get pretty hungry, and I got something pretty delicious for dinner planned. I got some gnocchi. And gnocchi, if you never had it, it's just like potato pasta. They're just like these little fluffy potato balls that are delicious. And we're also going to be making some fresh basil pesto with some basil, olive oil, got some pine nuts, got some garlic, and then some salt. And honestly, I don't know if I brought enough salt. For whatever reason, I thought I had a couple more of these packages, but it's going to have to do for this. I don't want to lose it. Yeah. And then for cooking up our gnocchi, brought a little portable stove that just runs off of a little can of propane. The same propane that I'm probably going to use for my little buddy heater later if it gets cold enough. Got my little fire extinguisher over there. And of course, we're going to need a big old pot to cook it all in. Very nice. Let's go ahead and turn this thing on. See the little blue lights down there? And I'll open this window as well. And then for making the pesto, it's going to be super easy because I brought a food processor. I'm just going to toss in some garlic, throw in some pine nuts. I just opened up the basil container and it smells so good. And I'm just adding in the leafy parts, none of the stems. And it's time to add in some olive oil and then our teeny little packets of salt. Now I can go ahead and flip on the inverter, plug in our little food processor, and make some pesto. Just like that. Some beautiful fresh pesto. Ooh, I smell the garlic. It's gonna be so good. Oh yes, I'm excited. Go ahead and pop off the inverter just to save a little bit of energy, even though we're already getting some back in the battery. And speaking of battery, let's check on it. And wow, we're at 100%. Our battery is full again. That's awesome. That's incredible. That's so cool. We literally charged back up to full just hanging out here. Oh, I love that. With this stove on, it feels like it's 100 degrees in here. It's so hot. Gnocchi is so delicious and it cooks up pretty quick. And the way you know it's done cooking is when you start seeing the little potato pastas floating to the surface. Wow. I can go ahead and turn off the stove, and I'm going to strain it directly through this lid. You place the lid on top, it's got these little strain holes, and I'm just going to dump it outside. Oh, it smells so good. Now this is a delicious meal, glistening in the sun. Some fresh gnocchi and pesto on this beautiful day in the newly upgraded camper with the cab. Oh, this is gonna be so good. I completely forgot I got a block of Parmesan cheese. I need to put this on top too. And I don't really have a shredder, so I'm just gonna kind of whittle some little pieces. It's a little too big of a piece to put in there. Now this is a perfect meal to christen the new upgraded cab camper. Oh. This is so good. I am so happy with how this camper turned out. Going from the motorcycle type camper to this car type camper, it was a challenge, but I think it turned out beautifully. And don't get me wrong, I really liked the motorcycle camper. I learned a lot from it, and it was fun to drive that thing around too. But this, I like it a bit better. I like the cab. I like being able to be inside this thing. It's got these massive windows, got the steering wheel, and just zooming along. It's so much fun, and I'm so happy with how the thing handled. I was worried it was going to be really hard to steer the thing, because when it's parked and you try to turn the steering wheel, it's like you're fighting something. But when you're going, you can steer with just one hand, and it performed beautifully. It got me out here, turned around, did a bunch of turns, and it was awesome. Pesto's so good. And the build for this took me around 2 weeks to build. Probably 2 weeks to plan, 2 solid weeks to build, and probably 2 or 3 weeks to edit the video. So these always take me a big chunk of time to make these projects and put these videos out there. And I truly hope you enjoy them, because I really like building stuff like this, and I enjoy just getting better at building things and learning through every project and just putting what I've learned to the next project. Yeah, it's just cool to see how far I've come from my first camper to this one, and I'm super proud of this one. I really am. If there is one thing that I can think about upgrading on this camper, I think it's got to be the motors. Don't get me wrong, these motors, they work fine, and I can even get this thing moving on just the rear axle. It's just that this machine is heavy. It's so heavy. I have no idea how much it weighs. Probably like 1,000 pounds, something like that. And those motors, surprisingly, they work, but I just feel like they are really chugging along, like giving it their all to get this thing going, because this thing is heavy. But yeah, that's something I think about, possibly adding on some bigger motors to this, but that would involve completely redoing all the wiring again and probably getting some more batteries and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. I also want to mention that I am going to be attending the Open Source Convention again this year. It's July 19th to the 20th. And I went last year, and it was such a blast. I met so many cool people, saw so many cool inventions and creators, and just it was amazing. Just all these people come together who like technology and building and just creating things, and there's just so many different art installations and technology and robots and all these crazy things and battle bots. It was just really cool. So I just wanted to mention I am going to be going again this year. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, if you go, maybe I'll see you there. Kind of something unreal when I was there. I was lucky enough to go to Adam Savage, the guy from Mythbusters, if you remember, his workshop, which was like almost like a dream come true. It's crazy. I grew up watching Mythbusters, and so many of the creators there were inspired by him, and it was just really cool that he all led us into his workshop and just checked out his place, and it was incredible. It was such a cool time. Yeah, just something I think about. Yeah, it was so much fun. I am stuffed, and that was so amazing. All right, just finished cleaning up dinner, did all the dishes and everything. It is currently 51 outside, 60 degrees inside. Cooling down a little bit, but still feels pretty good. Got my sweatshirt back on again. Lucky for me, I found some old MRE like little condiment kits, and I had some gum because my breath is very garlicky right now. I used way too much garlic in that pesto. I could have probably gotten away using half that much. I must have confused the garlic with wood screws and used way too many of them. But it was still so good. I ate all of it. I literally ate it all. It's moments like this that make the whole build worth it. Just hanging out after eating some delicious meal in this cozy little cabin. The beautiful view outside. I really like repurposing this table protector vinyl as windows. I think it's a cool idea. And I like how the stuff, it doesn't really scratch as much as like acrylic would or plexiglass would. And I don't have to worry about it shattering, which is nice. You can also see how big of a track this thing made. It's pretty muddy over there too, but it did just fine getting through it. Ooh, that sun is coming out to play again. Alright, let's see if we can find another snake along here. Looks like there's a pretty big hole right there. Something down there. Coyote, fox, groundhog, no idea. Look at this thing. These are always so fuzzy. I'm not even sure what this is. Some type of like weed or something, but it's just like the fluffiest leaves ever. Ooh, you see this? Nope. We got ourselves a garden snake. Take a minute with him. Mr. Snake, relax. I'm not gonna hurt you. Ah! How cool he is, though. Alright, buddy. You take it easy, okay? Run away! That was fun. I don't know the last time I caught a snake. And that one was, felt friendly. It didn't make a horrible musty smell or anything. He just hung out with me for a little bit, then slithered off. That was cool. This just turned out to be a beautiful day. It really is. I think it's time to head back inside the camper for now. That was a lot of fun. Got ourselves a little snake. I ended up moving things around a little bit so I can lay down in this front section and just get a nice view of the sky. It's like a nice little sunroom in here. Yeah, I really like this window section. It's pretty cool. All my little switches and stuff. I like them. My little rear view camera. How cool is that? Dink. I love it. And I did bring my giant flashlight. It's been a while since I brought this thing. I thought it'd be cool if I had it at night. And this thing is just very bright. Speaking of this big flashlight, something interesting about it is I think this is the first time I used clear vinyl as like a window. I put it on the side here so you can kind of see the electronics inside. And ever since then, I've used vinyl for windows and other projects. So I think this is maybe where it started from. That's kind of cool. I still can't believe there was snow on the ground yesterday. It's crazy. Sun is definitely starting to set out there. Not much longer, it's going to be dark out. And the first thing I want to do when it's dark out, I want to take this thing for a drive. Then we can go around, pop on some lights in here, get a little bit brighter. Pretty cozy with these lights on. I like it. I was just thinking about this. Maybe it would be smart to get like a curtain along here that I could like draw open and close in case it's like really bright out and I'm trying to sleep or something like that. Yeah, that might be cool. Little curtain there. I'm not sure if there's really enough room. Just kind of thinking about some stuff, but it might be cool. Would you look at that? It's dark outside. I think it's time we take this thing for a ride. Sweet. I might end up turning off these interior lights when driving because there's a little bit of reflection, if you can see, in the window. Yeah, let's go ahead and pop on our reverse camera, see what this is looking like. It's pretty overblown with those lights on. A little bit better now. it's an all right night camera. It's better in the day for sure, but hey, it's there if I need it. But yeah, let's go ahead and power this thing on. Send it forward. Let's have ourselves some fun. Oh, this is awesome. Did you see that rabbit that just ran in front of me? That was crazy. Just zooming along through the darkness. I feel like this is a nice spot to camp for the night. I'm not really sure where I'm at, but I'm on the path right now. I've been driving around for a little while, so I think this is a good spot to just call it. That was so much fun. I had such a blast driving this thing just in the darkness, bouncing around like crazy, dodging rabbits. Oh, that was fantastic. For the battery status, 91% battery. So we used just as much power on this drive as we did getting out here. And I did have it in like 4-wheel drive. I had it for both of the axles the whole time just because it's more fun that way. It's got more pep that way. You can definitely feel it. But yeah, that was a blast driving this thing around at night. So much fun. I don't think I stopped smiling for a single second. I think it's time we mess around with that little flashlight. Let's see. Look how cool this thing looks from the outside. And let's hit it with the flashlight. Boom! Yes. I saw a bunny over here a couple minutes ago. Yeah, this thing is just so bright. And it says how much power it's pulling. If you can see that, we're pulling around 230 watts on these two LEDs. Yeah, everything looks really nice. This is sweet. Oh wow, it looks like this tree blew over too. And you got a pretty big moon up there. Got the car way over there. Boom! This thing is cool. What a wonderful day. You can see the ground's all wet from dew and stuff from it cooling down. A little bit of mud over here. This thing is holding up strong. Beautiful. Alright, I think we should head back on inside and get comfy for the night. I went ahead and sort of reorganized my things, set things in the front and to the side, and I'm preparing because I want to turn on the little buddy heater. Because it actually is getting cold. I feel like it's dropping pretty quick. It's 36 outside and 45 inside, so it's starting to get cold. And I did bring a carbon monoxide meter, which is important if you're going to use something like this. And I'm also going to go ahead and crack a window just to get some good ventilation in here. Ba-ba-boom. It's freezing outside. It's literally freezing. It's 32 degrees outside and 48 in here. It got real cold real quick, but this thing should keep me nice and toasty. And speaking of toasty, I think it's time we take out our toaster because I got a nice little snack in mind. Some delicious little M&M cookies. Alrighty, let's go ahead and pop on our inverter, plug in our toaster oven, and let's make some cookies. It is definitely starting to get warm in here. It says it's 50 degrees in here now, which is way better than the 32 or 31 outside. They just give you like a brick of cookies. Okay, cut some of these in half. The key to using this toaster oven is you got to squish them out a bit. Otherwise, it just burns the top and won't cook them. Got a little tray of cookies. So cool. Alright. I don't think I've ever done 4 at the time, so maybe I'll set it to 4 and we'll see. And we can immediately hear the inverter kicked on, pulling right around 550 watts. What a cool setup. Got the heater, the toaster oven, lights all around, hanging out in my cozy little cabin on wheels. I love it. And I'm also charging my camera batteries. So cool. By the way, when propane burns, it produces like a lot of moisture. And you can already tell by looking at the cab, it's starting to cover the walls with moisture. When I used my diesel heater, it didn't produce any moisture, but this puts out, honestly, quite a bit of it. But for portability, this thing is awesome. You don't have to carry any gallons of fuel or anything. Alright. Let these puppies cool off. Those look pretty good. While those cookies are cooling down, I think I'm gonna make a couple more cookie molds so I'll have them ready. Man, this thing puts off a lot of heat. Oof, it's getting warm in here. And in case you're wondering about the heat above the little buddy heater, I can hold my hand here like indefinitely. It is hot, but it is not like burning hot, so I don't have to worry about the wood or anything. And I did bring a heated blanket. I'll probably wrap myself around this at night instead of having this on just to use this. I don't really like sleeping with this thing on. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, this looks pretty good. Still a little bit soft. All right, yeah. Get a little plate of these going. This is just good fun. I mean, in the meantime, I should try this. Little cookie. Wow. That was perfect. I don't know what happened. I had 3 other ones and they're just gone now. Yeah, I think 4 in here and setting it to 3. Just about perfect. The toastier it gets in here, the colder it gets outside. It's 56 in here and 29 outside. Wow. That is cold. A little soft, this poor cookie. Set it to 3. These ones are just pieces. I think I didn't wait long enough and they kind of broke up. Still pretty good though. Alright, I can go ahead and power this off, unplug this, let these puppies cool. I also have these fans, and I'm going to use these to circulate the heat in here because I feel like it's very concentrated to my face and I want to send it all here. Actually, I'll send one of these at the cookies. There we go. One will cool off the cookies and the other will blow the heat. And for the battery status of cooking the cookies, 89%. So we went down 2%. Really didn't use that much to make 4, 8, 12. 12 of those little cookies. Not bad at all. It looks like some of these are crumbly. Cheers. You just can't go wrong with a simple chocolate chip cookie. Perfect. Nice and toasty in here. It is 62 degrees in here and 28 degrees outside. It's a pretty cold day out there, but nice and toasty in here. And it's also starting to get pretty late, but there still is one more thing I want to do before I catch some sleep. And that is, I brought my Steam Deck, and I brought a portable monitor, and I want to play some games. And I think that's alright. Yeah, that's alright. There's not that big of a space for all of this, but we'll make it work. Yeah, let's go and power this stuff on. Look at this, nice setup. Got the thermometer, powering all the appliances, and I recently found out you can connect a PS5 controller to the Steam Deck, which is pretty cool. I want to play something. Yeah, let's play some Metal Slug. It's been a minute since I played this. Bada boom. This is just a good, fun game. Come on, come on. Oh, Nelly. Thank you. I played this game for hours and I'm still not very good at it. Boom. The mech suit. So cool. Oh, I remember having to like run. Like someone chases me or something. There it is. It's like a giant snake. It's the snake from earlier. Finally. Success. Oh, that was a lot of fun. It's a hard game. I wish I was better at it. And I'm happy it doesn't cost any quarters. Otherwise I would have lost like $20. Yeah. Anyways, I am tired. I think it's time to pack everything up. It's like 11:30 and I'm about ready to get some sleep. Alrighty, let's set up the sleeping bag. And I also remembered a real pillow. And I'm gonna just use my heated blanket and kind of stuff it in here, probably underneath me, and turn it on just to keep me warm all night long. Because I did turn off the little buddy heater. I know those are technically like indoor safe and all that stuff. I just don't really like sleeping with that one on necessarily. So yeah, I'm gonna use the electric heated blanket. I think we got like 90% of the battery. We are perfectly fine. This thing can run on high all night long. And it'll be so nice. It's nice to finally relax in here. You can see I kind of shoved all my gear on top of the folded seat. And it works out perfect. I can use the cab as like storage for night. And I just have this area just open for myself. It's nice when I remember to bring an actual pillow. It makes sleeping so much nicer. I don't have to ball up my sweatshirt. Anyways, I am tired. It is like midnight right now. And it's been a long day, but it's been a really good day. I had such a blast driving the machine around. And it worked beautifully. Any day where my machine, the wheel doesn't fall off or anything like that is a good day. And this one handled beautifully. Yeah, I'm nice and comfy in my sleeping bag. I got my heated blanket on. I turned it down a little bit. I don't need it on full blast, and I'll just run that all night long. But yeah, I am tired and ready to get some sleep. So get some good sleep, everybody, and I'll see you all in the morning. Good morning. It's nice and sunny out today. For the temperature, yeah, wow, it is really cold out. It's 24 degrees outside, 28 in here. Looks like there's a bunch of almost ice. Yeah, there's some frost on the windows. Alright, let's go ahead and turn on this heater. And you can also see my solar panel system is on. It's getting just like the smallest trickle of power. But yeah, it should start charging up the batteries. The sun rises a little bit higher. Here we go. Yeah, it should start warming up pretty quick with this on. As for the battery, I did use the heated blanket all night. And right now we're at 82%. I think we are at like 89 when I went to sleep. So we dropped like 7%, something like that, using the blanket. Really not too bad. It's kind of what I expected, but we got more than enough juice for everything we got planned today. It's cold. It's crazy. I was wearing a t-shirt yesterday and it's cold again. I guess it's just that time of year. As it's starting to warm up in here, I'm gonna warm up a bit myself. Make a nice little cup of tea on this cold morning. Cheers. Now that I got a cup of tea, think it's time to start to make some breakfast, and I got some pancakes. For cooking these pancakes, I ended up bringing my little electric griddle. I've used this, I think, once in the past, and it ended up working pretty well. Wow, it's absolutely freezing right now. I will turn this thing on just so we can start getting it warmed up. So by the time we're ready, it'll be nice and hot. I always like making pancakes and waffles in a jar when camping. It's just easy. All right. Perfect. It's already starting to feel way nicer in here. 55 in here, 32 outside. Yeah, even outside it's getting warmer. All right, let's go ahead and make some pancakes. Got some hot tea, cooking some pancakes. Got a heater right here. And it's a beautiful day outside. I can hear birds. I can hear a woodpecker somewhere out there. We're charging up at 1.5 amps, a little more than that, which is awesome. We'll get some juice back in the battery when making these cakes. All right, let's see. There we go. Not too bad. Yeah, I like this little griddle. One beautiful cake. Some more to come. That was not a good pancake flip. Whoops. Nice recovery. Perfect. And it's definitely getting warm in here. It says it's 67 degrees Fahrenheit in here, and I believe it. It's very warm. And this little griddle, it pulls around 650 watts, which is perfect for the inverter, and it's perfect for making pancakes. Cooks them up real quick. Just beautiful. Big flip. Beautiful. These are some pretty big pancakes. Almost the whole plate size. Maybe I need a bigger plate next time. Flip this off. Turn off the inverter. Let this thing cool down. Got a nice fresh stack of pancakes, and if you can even believe it, I remembered and got maple syrup. I brought some real maple syrup. Let's have some delicious breakfast. I don't have much room on the plate, so I'm gonna go ahead and pour some of this syrup in a bowl and just dip from here. I don't know where my fork is. It's somewhere deep in there, so I'm just gonna use my hands. Oh. Wow, it's been quite a while since I've had pancakes with maple syrup. I usually have them with honey, but I miss maple syrup, but it's good. This is delicious. I ended up sleeping really well last night. I was exhausted and I fell asleep like right away. Oh. A nice breakfast, hanging out in one of my machines. Oh, I love this. I'm honestly super impressed with how the machine handled driving around. It did a fantastic job. And I gotta say, the motors that are on this thing, they impress me so much. I am so surprised they can get this big thing moving as fast as it's moving. Because like if I went outside and tried to push this thing, I had to give it my all to get it moving. But those motors do a pretty good job. I do think that they need to be upgraded a little bit, because I can tell they're pushing their max weight pretty much. But the fact that they can even move it that fast is awesome to me. But yeah, but I do think it would be cool to upgrade the motors on this build again. I feel like that's really what this thing needs, because it just keeps getting heavier and heavier. The cabin mobile. Yeah, this thing just literally is a nice box of wood. I love it. This is turning out to just be a perfect, beautiful morning. I can't believe how cold it was and just how hot it is now. 79 in here. This has just been the perfect adventure. Everything went so smoothly getting out here. I am so happy. Anytime I don't have to replace a front tire or use jack stands or a tread rips is just a wonderful time. The last bite. I just cleaned up all the breakfast stuff. I still got the heater on. We're charging the panels at over 2.5 amps now. Beautiful. Let's get some juice back in the battery. I am going to have to wipe down all these windows though. There's a whole lot of moisture on them still, but at least it's thawed out. It's not frozen ice anymore. I'm just going to use some of this. Clean off all these windows. There we go. You can actually see out now. I do wish there was an easier way to get rid of all this moisture, but I think a lot of it has to do with running the little buddy heater. If I switch over to a diesel heater and use that instead, I don't think I have to worry about this much moisture as much. I really don't think so. Go ahead and pop off my heater. Alright, packed up all my gear. Breakfast was fantastic, but sadly, now it's time to head on back home. It has been a wonderful adventure taking out the new upgraded motorcycle camper to car camper, and I had so much fun with it, and I'm super happy with how the machine actually handled. I have so much fun just building these things and just creating and inventing and taking out these wild machines. It's just a blast for me, but these videos do take me a lot of time, energy, effort, and everything. It just takes a whole lot to get these things going, from just a piece of paper to a physical thing I can sit inside and drive around. So I just truly hope you enjoy it, because I want to keep making stuff like this and building things and just having fun adventures like this. Anyways, it's time for me to drive on home, and I just want to say thanks for stopping by, everybody. I truly appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Still got a bit of a journey to get back. Oh, this thing is awesome. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn on both of them. This thing is awesome. What is this? Oh my, a half-eaten dollar bill. Nice. Just setting up the camera and I found $1. That's cool. It's so random out here. Oh, I love it. This could have been mine. I have no idea.